Welcome to NEK Vermont Rocks. My guest today is Diane Peel. And we're going to talk about politics. You know, there are three things we're never supposed to talk about: politics or sex or money. So let's blow off the last two and stick with politics. I mean, it's so innocuous in Newport. I just read an article that you put in your really great newsletter. Do you want to expand on that a bit?
Well, I felt I needed to write an opinion piece, which I don't do too often for the newsletter. I try to get other people to write them, but I was actually, when I saw a headline in the paper, I was just boiling mad, and I really felt I needed to write something that explained why I was mad. It was regarding the petition that some folks had come around to the 99 and asked me if I wanted to sign regarding the leachate going into the lake and the expansion of the landfill, two separate petitions, just to get it on the ballot. I usually sign these things. They're you know, I'm pleased when people are actually going around doing that. It was a cold time of the year, and you know, they were out tromping around, and so I had signed the petition. I left it out for other people to sign. And then when I saw the headline in the paper that the petition had been denied by the city council, it was like a flashback to what I think is a long history in Newport of disregard for any sort of citizen initiative. And I do think that's damaging. I think it's very damaging to Newport, and maybe partially explain why we have some troubles here. And I think that rectifying that would be something that would be healthy for our community.
Yeah, it's certainly not supporting a democratic process.
Definitely. I guess I'd like to make an analogy sort of between different parenting styles. You know, when kids get older, when your child gets older and they want to learn how to drive, and they take driver's education, they want to drive the car, at some point, you know, you have to give them the keys to the car. And a parent who is terrified that their child will get hurt or might do something stupid and just says, no, you're never going to be able to drive, is not letting that child ever gain the responsibility and the wisdom that they need to drive a car and make those decisions. What a good parent does is that they educate their child, they talk to them about safety, they take them out on the road and do stuff, and they take a deep breath, and they give them the keys to the car, and they let them start making decisions on their own. I think that, I believe that the city of Newport leadership for many years, and not just lately, but for many years, has had a problem with being scared to death to let citizens have freedom to make decisions. And I think it's equivalent to a very bad parenting style, is a very bad leadership style. In this country, we have representative government. It's tempered by a constitution with laws, and that state of Vermont is pretty much built on the federal model. It's tempered by laws, and we have a model which sort of tries to strike a balance between this idea that if you just let people make decisions on their own, that they'll do stupid stuff. Therefore, you need to sort of clamp down on them and, you know, don't let them make their own decisions. And the other, you know, extreme, which is to say, well, we'll just have a direct democracy and let everybody, you know, make their decisions, and we won't step in at all. Well, we have something in the middle. And so what I think has happened in Newport is that I would almost describe it as an anxiety disorder on the part of our leadership. It's this sort of leadership style that is totally focused on that the people are really too stupid to be able to make decisions, and that we must make decisions for them.
Very paternalistic.
It's paternalistic in a bad way.
I mean, I'm not sure that paternalism is ever good.
Well, you can make the parenting analogy, but you know, good parents don't assume that they always know best. They
Right.
know that you need to give people responsibility. I could go on. I don't remember
And
what I'm talking about, but
interestingly, in the last 3 or 4 years, the controls at city council meetings have become more and more stringent. There are
Right.
no places, or very few places, where there's any opportunity for citizen participation. There is a comment section at the beginning where people are allowed 2 minutes, and they get no feedback. I mean, there's nothing more horrifying than speaking to a row of blank faces that clearly you don't even know if they're listening. That's really bad parenting.
It's appalling to me that the city council would consider the public being there intruding
Right.
on what they're doing.
Right.
I did look up, quickly, I looked at the guidelines for select board members in Vermont, and I do find there isn't a lot in there about the idea of representing the will of the people, but this is the, United States of America, this is the state of
Allegedly.
Vermont, where we this is how we govern in this country with it's not, we do not have an elite that we have elected whose job it is to make decisions for us because they know best. We have a government which is supposed to be responsive to the will of the people.
Right.
And
I mean, wasn't there a
Yeah.
war that was about getting rid of a monarch who was dictatorial?
right, absolutely.
What are we doing electing more
So,
of them?
the idea that the public is getting in the way of the business that they're trying to do, that we're
Right.
trying to do our job, and you people here, who are you? You're getting in our way. It's just awful. It's
Yes.
appalling. And,
How do we change it?
well, actually, I want to say something else first, as I'm still on that, is that the damage that does, I think, contributes to one of the problems we have. We have, in at least the people that I work with, or in some sections of Newport, we have a lot of poverty, we have some drug issues, and the failure to give people a sense that they have control over the leadership is demoralizing.
It is.
And I think contributes to the general feeling that people have, especially low-income people, that nothing makes a difference, and
Right.
that you can't fix your problems, and you probably just should try to avoid them however you can.
And preferably leave town.
Just zone out or
Yeah.
leave or whatever. So it's very, very damaging to the community climate. So how to fix it, I have some thoughts on that, but
How do we get people, I mean, obviously voting is one of the ways,
Right.
assuming that people believe that there are some viable choices.
You have to give some people something that they get excited about
Yes.
to have on the ballot. And I really think the lake was an excellent choice for doing that, as a way to, even if it's non-binding, as a way to give people something that will make them think and have an opinion and maybe do some research. I mean, I am not like a super environmental person, so when the people came in with the petition, it was not like something that was way up there on my radar, because I work more with people. But what it did for me was it stimulated me to look into the issue more, to ask some questions, and and to look what was going on in the paper, and then actually did even some more research after that. And I talked to Henry Coe, and then I started asking questions like what's the hydrology of Lake Memphremagog? I never would have done any of that had they
Right.
not brought it up to my attention, and that's the value of that. So putting things out there for people to have opinions on, I think is just extremely helpful in making them ask what they feel about it. And then also it makes people on both sides start putting info out there
Exactly.
to educate them, because both sides want to get their point across.
Right. And I think what was particularly discouraging and offensive about that particular attempt to put something on the ballot, that was totally Newport driven and led. Those were citizens of Newport who put that together, took it out, walked the streets, and then to have it totally blown off
It's like,
is not good.
I mean, and I think I guess I don't know all the details, and I may have my history wrong, so if there's someone that's watching that wants to correct me on my history, but years ago I had talked with a man named Rial Lanou that was very interested in getting a train museum, and I think there was a similar issue that a lot of people went to a lot of work in Newport to work on the train museum issue, and at the last minute, after having tremendous amount of effort, it was just nixed by the city council. And
do you know on what grounds?
I think it had something to do with the location of it and whether Pomerleau was going to go along with it or whatever. I don't know what the issues were, but really no effort to make a compromise with the. They had like 100 people. They'd collected tons of money. They'd done research on. It was like a citizen movement to get this train museum, and I'm thinking, like, maybe was that the beginning of the end? Because after that, those people, I'm sure, said, well, what's the point? Why go to all that work if it just means nothing?
Right.
And so I think one thing for the city council needs to do is to give people choices, let them vote on things, even if they're non-binding, and then get out there with information for people, facilitate public debate.
Right. And there isn't even a way currently for citizens to contact their representatives. Yeah, they could make a phone call, but that's interrupting somebody in their home, and that doesn't feel really good. I guess there's email too. But again, there should be a place, a way for citizens to contact their elected officials.
And I think they could, work on getting more attendance to city council meetings. And I know that people are busy, and I don't know, maybe we have door prizes or
I love that.
It's like, or potluck or,
it's
free child care.
It's actively discouraged.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that has been asked repeatedly is for it to be mic'd so that people can actually hear, because whoever's presenting to the council sits right in front of them, and they whisper to each other on the table. Those sitting in the audience can't hear. And they repeatedly have asked over and over for it to be raised volume, for there to be a microphone, or would people please speak in a voice that can be heard? And people give up. They say, what's the point? I can never hear it.
You get a pretty decent crowd at the legislative breakfast.
Yes.
Because you got food, and it's a more congenial environment, and there is more of an opportunity for people to speak.
There's an interaction.
Yeah, there's
too.
interaction, and it just, I think that, if I were going to wave my magic wand and say, okay, it's going to be the way I want it to be, I would definitely restructure the city council meetings to try to get more citizen involvement at those meetings. Definitely not discouraging people from having opinions, and it's okay if it's not your opinion.
Absolutely.
The more opinions you got out there, the better.
You would think. How else do we learn? And how else do we encourage kids, young people, to take an interest in what's happening? And they watch their parents giving up. Where's the incentive to make change for themselves?
I think as I said in the little thing I wrote, that I would, if it's not something that's illegal, immoral, or prejudicial, I'd put it on there for people to look at and encourage
but that's democracy,
people to get
and that's
educated.
not what we're practicing.
Well, and it's also good community building because it tells people their opinion is valuable, and it helps give them more sense of control. It's that I really find that in dealing with people whose lives are struggling, that one of the big problems is the lack of sense of control.
Right.
It's bad things happen, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
And it's sort of fatalism that leads to, I might as well just stay home and drink my beer and zone out, because what is it? Everybody else is running my life. I'm not in charge of. I'm not in control of anything. So that's another thing that I think it's important to do. It's one thing we try to do at the 99, and one of the reasons I run the 99 is that is to continually try to present information and issues to people and give them a format where they can get together and talk about stuff and talk about solutions, to try to encourage that sense of something can be done. That it's not, you're not just a victim of
Right.
of all the bad stuff that's going on around you. That if you complain about something, you might get results. If there's something that is not going right, maybe you can get together with some other people and do something about it. So I'm like always featuring people who, in the
Right.
newsletter, who do stuff in the community, who are organizing stuff at that level, to try to give people a sense that
Yeah.
that they can make changes, that they do have some control.
Yeah. I think we also learned a hard lesson in Newport with the whole EB5 debacle, because citizens were saying, and you were one of them,
Yeah.
were saying, come on, this emperor is stark raving naked.
And nobody was listening.
Not only were they not listening,
Yeah.
you were shot down in flames, and so was anybody
Yeah.
else who raised the issue. As soon as it turned out that you were the one who noticed he was naked, or all of them were naked, then it was, we have to move on now. So there was no point at which citizens were told, hey, you were right, and maybe we can
Yeah.
make sure we never get into this mess again. But instead, citizens are shut down even more. Since that time, there are more obstructions about when you can speak, when you can't speak, what you're allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say, and heaven forbid you should ever question.
Maybe you know more than I do about the local government. I guess I would have to look into the charter of Newport, maybe, or to find out. As I said, when I read through it, it didn't say a lot about the responsibility of select people to
Right.
be representatives. But I think that would be a good thing to be questioning them about.
I agree.
Is the degree to which they feel that, is their job there to be smarter than us and to make decisions for us, like we hired them because they are all, all so much smarter? And reading the mayor's letter, I looked at the research and I decided that this was the course of action. But, he's one person, and
Right.
what about the others, all the other, couple
Right.
thousand smart adults that we have in this town?
the letter
They
is-
can read too.
Paraphrase the letter. The
Yeah.
letter says, I had some conversations with the foxes who were in charge of you chickens, and this is what I
Yeah.
decided. Oh,
It's
okay.
like, so, that that's not representative government.
No, it's not.
That's government by elite.
Yes.
And that's not what we do in
No.
this country or in this
Or
state.
Well, it is what we're doing in this country currently, but it's certainly, I'm foreign, in case you hadn't noticed, and to become a citizen, I had to take a course.
So you know a lot about this stuff.
And I had to ask a lot of questions and learn a lot of things. We elect people to represent us. We do not elect people to be dictators. But
Well,
somehow,
We have that balanced system where we have,
Yes, checks and balances.
based on the Roman and Greek model, where we have a Senate, which is supposed to be those folks who are supposed to be more deliberative, and maybe
And in
they
tune with
look
the
into
people.
it too. But they're the more let's apply some careful reasoning to this, and then we have representatives who. That is literally their job. They are supposed to represent the will of the people. That's the will of the people part.
And they're supposed to listen so they find out
Right,
what is
they
the
are
will
just
of the
a
people.
conduit. They are not there. It's
Right.
the Senate that's supposed to offer that sort of, we've looked into it, balance sort of thing, and then it's the representatives who are supposed to provide that will of the people.
Right.
Because we, back when the system was set up, we couldn't have everybody punching on their iPhone to send their vote in,
Right.
which we could probably do nowadays, but we couldn't do it back then, so we had to
Right.
have people get the sense of what the will of the people was and take that will to Washington or to Montpelier. So, that will of the people is a really important part of how we do stuff in this country and in this state. And that should not be ignored at the local level. There's no reason why we should have some other philosophy of governing at the local level, which basically says that we just have people that know better than you, and we're going to let them run things, and don't bother your pretty
Right.
little heads about it.
And who say, this is our meeting, not your meeting. Really?
Yeah, that, that was just really shocking. I mean,
That has been said several times.
yeah.
Very strange.
Well, so I think what people need to do is they need to start looking at people who are running
Mhm.
for local office and say, you know, what's your philosophy on this? Are you going to be sitting there to take into consideration what the people who elected you
Mhm.
want to do? Or are you there because you think you know more than we do?
Right. Well, in theory, we have an opportunity to do that in a couple of weeks because there's
Right.
going to be a
Yep.
panel. And all of the candidates for both city council and for mayor will be sitting there, we
Mhm.
hope. And we can ask them questions. Again, we hope. We may have to submit them ahead of time.
Is that going to be at the library
Yeah.
again?
Oh, that's my understanding,
Yeah.
but it hasn't been confirmed yet.
So that's a great opportunity for people to say, you know, if elected, are you going to listen to the people? And not just somebody that corners you at,
How are you going
Wendy's
to
or something,
listen
but-
to the people? How are you
Yeah.
going to indicate that you actually are interested in what the people who are voting for
Mm-hmm.
you think?
and how are you going to elicit public debate? Are you going to hold public
Right.
forums? Are you going to send out questionnaires? Are you going to, you know, encourage more people to come to city council? Rather than just, you know, maybe you just hear from the folks you happen to have around you or you happen to know. That's
Could we,
not too
if the
representative.
city council meetings have to be, quote, just for business, and I can sort of see some of that, what about a different forum
Mhm,
slash format
right.
where we have
Yeah.
something like a legislative breakfast for locals
Mhm.
where
Oh,
citizens
great
really
idea.
can be heard?
Yeah.
We've talked about that.
Mhm.
There was a significant lack of interest from some of the current members, but maybe that will change.
That's a good idea, you know, some sort of public forum. I mean, that was the good thing about the old town meeting and one of the
Right.
strengths of New England, and perhaps why the select board, maybe instructions don't really go into a lot the representativeness, because they
Mhm.
might have assumed that with the town meeting system, people were getting their voices heard.
Mhm.
But we don't have that anymore here.
Right.
So there is no format for that kind of public debate.
There's no place to ask questions. For example, when the budget was being put
Mhm.
together, at no point along the way could public ask questions. And nor, it appeared, could the city council members, and there was no meeting that allowed them to discuss it.
Mhm.
They went for individual meetings with the city manager, which frankly, from where I sit, is truly bizarre. We should get a voice in, other than just by voting it up or down, by knowing where our money is being spent.
The tenor that I see in leadership in Newport is fear.
Yes.
Fear, it's fear that that people run amok if you let them have responsibility or do what they
Mhm.
want to do or have opinions, that there's somehow everything's going to fall apart.
Right.
And, you know, yes, people do. Sometimes people make bad decisions. That's why you have an
Mhm.
obligation to make sure they're educated, which means you do need to have public
Right.
forums. You do need to get information out there. And that's, you know, that's a little extra work, but it's something
Right.
that I certainly would do if I were, you know, like I said, if I waved my magic wand and I were running the place,
I
it would be
ruled the
like,
world.
you know,
Yeah.
like the more information we can get out there, the better. Just a fear that, you know, like if the case of, say, the medical marijuana dispensary issue is like, well, if we have this here, then we're going to, somehow the fabric of society is going to degrade.
Right.
It's not.
Oh, okay. How do you figure that?
Well, you know,
Yeah.
like I said, it's the keys to the car. As you
Yes.
hand the keys to your kid for that car, you're thinking like, oh my God, they're going to get into an accident. But a good parent does that. They
Right.
give the keys to the kid
Right.
and say, it's, you know, we're giving you this responsibility. We're going to help
Mhm.
educate you and provide guidance. But you need to have this, to learn to do this. And that's what
Right.
people need to learn who are the people who are actually have the responsibility of governing. They
Right.
need to learn to do it.
Good parents teach their kids how to budget.
They teach the kids to have responsibility
Right.
and so they can have freedom and have it be responsible.
Right.
You cannot just assume that you have to keep people. Well, that's basically the idea of a totalitarian state.
Exactly.
Is
Which
the assumption
we're moving into, apparently.
is the assumption that you need to control everything very rigidly all the way down the line, because if you let people have a little freedom here and there, they might do something bad.
Well, it might oust you from your pretty little throne.
Yeah, or they might just, I think in their mind they're probably thinking that they have the right answers, and that's it's not, there is a certain component of wanting to keep power. That's definitely there too, but I think the rationale is that we know the right answers, and we don't want people to deviate from that. And if we give them any freedom, well, we need to give people that freedom, and then that what you have to do along with that is education and public debate. And like I said, for me, who's not particularly environmentally in tune a lot of the time, I'm kind of an indoorsy person. Having the issue brought up led to me asking all kinds of questions I would not have asked. So that's a perfect example of how bringing the subject up leads people to get more educated. And I think that I wanted to mention a couple other things. And one is that as far as encouraging people to vote, I think that this city council themselves probably, as are running things, that would be part of it, would be, setting up places where people could register to vote.
Right.
But I wanted to mention that there was another petition that was taken around for the child care center, the Promise Community Child Care Center, and those folks registered 15 new voters in Newport alone, along with taking a petition around. So they had, they gave those people an opportunity. Whether they will go to vote or not, we don't know, but at least it suggested to them they have an opportunity to do that. Yeah. And at the 3rd Street Hood Chat, which is another wonderful get-together that's encouraging community debate, to have people get ideas out there about how we can make things better, is they are going to be giving sample ballots to folks and have a discussion about how you fill out a ballot, and that whole process. That kind of grassroots stuff that's happening is really exciting. Another one is NEK organizing, which is people getting together and asking how they can help their neighbors. I think the Journey to Recovery Community Center is another one, and I hope, that the 99 is another one, that these sort of little nuclei organizations where the effort is being made to encourage public debate, to get people interested in what's going on in around them and how they can improve that. Because as we know from the EB.5 project, the white knight is not riding down to save us.
Exactly.
The best things that are happening that truly lasting change comes from the bottom up.
Absolutely.
And we see a lot of that nationally. We see a lot of changes happening at the state level, where these folks in Washington, they're fighting with each other all the time. They can't seem to get anything done. Well, we can get stuff done locally.
Right.
So.
And the more people become involved.
Right. And the more we encourage them and reward them for getting involved. They should, you submit a petition, you should get a sticker. It's like, here's your gold star for being a responsible citizen.
A sticker, just stick it on the darn ballot.
Yeah, just put it on the ballot, right?
Yeah.
Well,
no, there is no reward for any kind of participation, as we have it set up at present, and that is so sad.
It's sad and it's damaging.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, we have people that don't want to live here, or we have people that when they get out of high school, they want to go somewhere else, and we have people that, it's like the problems aren't going to be fixed, so I'm just going to try to not think about them. I'll watch something on TV. Those are all bad responses.
Right. I mean, I think it's great that kids, when they finish high school, do leave Dodge. That they go elsewhere, they see parts of the world, they get a load of experience, and think about then coming back and putting back into the community. But it's really important to get a different perspective. If we stay totally insular, we don't see beyond our own noses.
So I have hope for some of the things that are happening in my neighborhood and locally in Newport, that kind of citizen participation can be encouraged. It's a fight upstream against our leadership.
Yeah, we are about out of time. So if you had some parting words for how we keep swimming upstream, what would you say?
Well, I think I hope that viewers would be a bit indignant and get on their high horse a little bit about about leadership that feels that maybe about the elitism of leadership, that that they're not really the ones in charge, and get angry enough about that to start saying maybe we want to get people in office who will be responsive to us, and who will encourage us to speak and give us more opportunities to speak. I would like to see maybe a little bit of righteous indignation. Bob, my friend Bob Castle, used to say, nothing ever happens until people get angry.
It's true, and he was absolutely right.
Yeah.
So hopefully there's enough anger that can be used constructively.
Constructive. It's righteous indignation.
I like that. So on that note, thank you so much for coming in, and clearly we're going to be doing this again at some point.
Well, thank you so much for asking me.
You're welcome.
I love to express my opinion. I have no end to opinions.
We all do.